talking Memphis wrestling with Randy Hales and special guests.
I am Randy Hales, and we will start this June the 27th edition of Talking Memphis Wrestling with breaking news. It's my sad responsibility to report on a news story that was reported a few hours ago. Former Whitehall, Arkansas head football coach Ryan Mallett, who was born in 1988. He died today, June 27th, at age 35 years old in Florida by drowning. He graduated high school in Texarkana, Arkansas. He attended college in 2008 in Michigan. He was a Arkansas Razorback quarterback in 2009 and 2010. He played for the New England Patriots. He played for the Texans and the Ravens. Our thoughts and our prayers certainly go out today to the fans, to the family, to everybody associated with Arkansas football and certainly with Whitehall football. Ryan Mallett passed away today. Very, very sad news at 35 years old. And our thoughts and prayers to the Mallett family. Very, very sad situation. You know, we never want to come on the show and report news like that. We really don't. Again, the vision of all my shows is that I think it's important, both good and bad, to deal with breaking news and not just breaking wrestling news. And when something happens that affects somebody's life and somebody's family, I think it's important. And I think it's our responsibility as producers and as talent on this show to report that. And I appreciate so many people making great comments, from Al to Mark to PJ to Frank, everybody there. Sad situation. Also, hello to everybody else saying hello today. We heard right off the bat from Greg Wayne. A lot of people on here today. Again, very, very terrible and sad news. And to get his take on the sad news of Razorback, former Razorback, and head coach of Whitehall, Ryan Mallett. Pat, tough way to start the show today.
Well, it is, and I looked where Whitehall is, and it's not too far from you in Jonesboro, but just a terrible thing. But I can tell you, as everybody knows, I grew up in North Central Alabama, and as a result, uh, spent a lot of time in in the summers as a kid and with our family and everything going to the Gulf Coast beaches. And I can tell you that unlike other places, there is a lot of undertow that comes from those beaches. And, the water is tricky there. And, a lot of times people just get carried out. And I assume, I mean, Ryan was a professional athlete. I am not a particularly good swimmer at all. So I've been very careful, but I mean that I think somebody made a comment. There's been Mark, I think, said there've been 5 people drowned, and I think there's been a tremendous amount uh, this early part of the summer that have drowned down there. So if you do go down to the Gulf, the Alabama Gulf Coast, or the the Florida Panhandle Gulf Coast. It's a beautiful part of the world, and we're very, very proud of it. But be very, very careful in the water.
Very, very good words, and I appreciate it. Again, this is normally a wrestling show. It's what I'm built on, but at the same time, it's great concerning to me the human aspect of telling stories and telling news, and especially with the fact that Ryan was the head coach in Whitehall and that he played for the Arkansas Razorbacks. He's from born in Baseball, Arkansas, which is about an hour away from us, and it's right next to where a panel member of our show, Chris Ellis, he lives maybe 5 minutes from the city of Batesville. So it's just a horrible, horrible situation. Jackie's in the house, and Jackie, I agree with you. It's very, very, very sad news. And as Brooks is saying, and I believe that Adam said it, reported it, there's been riptide, or Pat reported there have been riptide warning all up and down the Gulf Coast and the Gulf Coast. Pat, I think, and your wife was recently on a trip, and you have a son that's out of the country, and you're going to visit him. You and your home family, you and your daughter Meg made a trip. Don't. This is a plea, as we're praying for everybody, but this is a plea. Don't take life for granted. Life can come to an end so quickly. So that's why we all need to be good to each other. And I say that knowing the direction this show is going to take later, and I may scratch that whole plan, to be honest with you. And I think probably I will. So, do you agree with that, Adam? It's not appropriate today to do that rant.
I would agree.
A big part, Adam Dunn, my producer's in the show, but we'll have a very, very good show today. But Pat, speak on how, as you're close to my age, that it's real easy for all of us to take life for granted. It really is, and how short life really is. It really is.
Well, that's true, and these things seem to come in threes, uh, or or at least seem to everybody. In our my children's community, one of Wyatt's best friends, um, sister 2 weekends ago was coming home from being out with her boyfriend and had a wreck and was instantly killed. 19 years old, just finished her freshman year at Alabama. Great family. You know, had to go sit in that funeral, and I told my children, I I texted them about it, and I talked to them both on the phone. I called Wyatt in Ireland, and I said, look, I know that you think that we are forever on you about not being out too late and not taking care of yourself and being responsible with alcohol and all that kind of stuff. And I said, the reality of it is, if your mother dies, it's going to hurt and I'm going to miss her. If I die, nobody cares. If the house burns down, we'll pitch a tent. If we go broke, we'll get a job. But the only phone call you are afraid of is something happening to one of your children. And that doesn't matter what age you are. And everybody on here is very, very special to me, and I consider us a family. And Adam and Randy, I hope you do know what you mean to me and what Chris and Michael do. But you're all special, and I love you all. And so let's just take care of one another.
Al writes a comment, says, we almost lost former Arkansas running back Peyton Hillis to a drowning in Florida recently. Thankfully, he survived, and I think he was rescuing maybe his kids or nephews or nieces or something like that. A
Who,
regular
Randy? Who
caller.
was the wrestler that drowned, rescuing his son last year?
Was that Chad Adams researched it? Was that Chad Gabart?
Yeah,
Something,
Yeah.
it
something
was.
like that. Certainly, Al, I think one thing is that one of the EJ, one of the regular callers on front row is kinfolks to him, and that's sad, for sure. And you're right, that is sad. As Tanner says, "Oh no, sad news indeed. Riptides are no jokes." Was taken by one time, and luckily I knew how to swim along with one. Very, very, very dangerous. It
Well,
is
I can tell you what it looks like just if you're down there. There will be there will be kind of waves, and then in the middle of it will be this just very calm piece of water. And so your natural inclination is to go where the water is calm, but what is happening is those waves are circling back and pushing you out to sea. And underneath, it's a strong current, and people generally, your inclination is to try to swim against it, and you can't do that. So unless you're a very experienced swimmer, please be please be cognizant of that. And thank you, PJ. I appreciate you too.
Al says my hometown just a couple of days ago, a young man the same age as Ryan, 35, a firefighter, died when his truck turned over on the way to put out a fire. Again, life is so sad. Life is so sad. I want to do a preview what you guys can expect. I am going to do a history, not a rant, a history on the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame today. We're going to continue our series that we started last week on the fabulous Jackie Fargo. We have two videos, one that includes Michael St. John, as Shane Russell says. I live here, and riptides are no joke. Several people died over the weekend down by Panama City. It's just a situation as life is short, no doubt about it. We will have some videos. We will talk about the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame and give you a history of that. We will do some previews and some plugging and that sort of typical stuff here today. And we'll start after breaking the show off with breaking news. Our first take of the show will go directly to Pat Trammell.
Well, I don't. It's kind of hard to follow something like that up. I've been thinking about that all day, and I think my first take is nothing special, but I do want you all to know. I guess the best first take I can think of is just to let everybody know how important you are to me, and how I feel like we're family. And again, I think Randy, you said it best. Let's just all love each other because we're very very fortunate to have our love of Memphis wrestling to keep us together.
Absolutely. Just very, very good thoughts. Just kind of going as we're waiting for Michael to come in, going strictly to business just doesn't seem right. But everybody's here and we have a good number of people talking on that for sure, as Frank Seaton is saying hello. And I think that I'll just let everybody know that I am really excited, except that we will have the responsibility to talk in this story, and we will give it ample amount of time tomorrow without a doubt in the world. Have plenty of time to talk about it tomorrow on Front Row with Budrow. I will be co-hosting at 7 o'clock in the morning on the NEA Sports Talk show, The Ticket, at 969, 95.3 and 970 AM. And you can go to 953theticket.com. You can call at 870-930-3776, 870 993-3776. That graphic is for every Wednesday. Obviously, I co hosted last Friday, I co hosted Monday, and I will be on the show today. And look, show tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Want everybody to listen, and we plan to stream live if possible on the 8 o'clock hour. That my guest is new Camp Junior High School coach and my niece, Kanan Grosbeck. We'll have Kanan on, and that interview means a lot to me, especially in times like this. Family is so very important. And I think I may have a picture of Kanan on that we can go to at 8:30. We will have the portal report, and then at 9 o'clock a one-on-one interview with the guy that means a lot to me, like family to me, my friend Brandon Baxter. Brandon absolutely will be on the air with me, as if we can show the picture of me and Brandon, even if we have to go to the Power Pro page to get to it. There we go. There, the radio station that was the very first station that I ever listened to in my life. It's 953theticket.com. Be sure, and we will, of course, adjust programming and have done so at this point. No doubt about it. We'll adjust programming to take care of that. There's no doubt about it at all. I want to say hello to everybody. As Rod says, good evening. And Melinda says, good evening. And Brooke says, I love y'all. Same back at you, man. And glad we're all here enjoying talking Memphis wrestling. This is a gift and not to be taken for granted. I appreciate that very much. And we appreciate everybody's comments, no doubt about it, in the world. Pat, back to you. Any other comments as we lead off the show and we wait for Michael St. John? I'll text Michael if we can let you talk a couple of minutes and give me that opportunity.
Well, Michael sent us a text today. I don't know if anybody, I don't know if, I know you all know Michael from the wrestling world, but I knew Michael St. John before I ever knew anything, or I knew of Michael St. John before I ever knew anything about wrestling. Well, anything about Memphis wrestling. Of course, I knew the Birmingham end. Michael was one of the first nighttime FM DJs when FM radio really started big in Birmingham. And Michael has an extensive and legendary career hey Randy, in radio, but it started in Birmingham. And I remember he would be on Sunday night, and he had one of those smooth, silky radio DJ voices, and he would be on Sunday night spinning the hits. But I saw an article today that I reposted on Twitter. There's a there was a hit in the 70s. There are two hits that Michael has a big piece of. There's a guy named Rick Dees who put a song together called Disco Duck that you probably all remember from the mid 70s during the disco phase. Rick Dees was a DJ in Birmingham, and Rick was fired to hire Michael. So Michael took his job, and Rick moved on to Memphis and put together Disco Duck, and Michael was the first person to play it on the radio. They were friends, even though Michael ended up with his job, unfortunately. But Michael was the first DJ in America to play that record, and he played it. He got a lot of calls and a lot of comments about it, so he played it 8 times a day, and it spread nationwide. And so Rick Dees owes his career to getting fired and Michael getting his job. Uh, there's another song that was a big song in the 70s um, called Moonlight Feels Right by a guy from the Starland Vocal Band. No, that's not the name of the band. I forgot the name of the band. But anyway, Michael was the first DJ in America to play that song. And that song was written and performed by a guy from Grenada, Mississippi, who was a wrestling fan. And it used to be when before there was streaming and all that, and I'm sure all you young people don't remember that, but radio was the only place that records got played. You could hear music. And so Michael put that on the rotation, and it ended up being a major hit and started what is today known as the yacht rock genre of music. So that's my story.
That's very interesting. Every one of us love Michael St. John. I want to say hello to Randy West, who has just joined us. We got PJ, we got so many people on here, and I appreciate it very much. And we're going to do a little reset of the show because we're 20 minutes into it and we're not going or have not gone with the content. And we're about to reset and get to some of the stuff that's planned on the show as we do a history next of the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. But I want to start by going back and resetting for those of you that's coming in. We're going to go ahead and put the breaking news up there again, and I will review the information that we led off with. A very, very tragic story as Ryan Mallett, who was the head football coach in Whitehall, Arkansas, drowned today and passed away in Florida due to drowning at age 35 years old. He was born in 1988 in Batesville, Arkansas. He graduated from Texarkana, Arkansas. He attended college, played football as a quarterback one season for the University of Michigan, star quarterback for the University of Arkansas, 2009, 2010. He played for the NFL for the Patriots, the Texans, and the Ravens. Ryan Mallett passed away today at 35 years old, and our prayers and thoughts are to the family, to the fans, to the friends. Our thoughts to him, certainly, and the entire family. And throughout the show, we will update and we'll have Michael St. John's take on that. Now, I've done advertising, I've done plugging, promoting for this show, and I did a very profanity based rant. Adam got involved in it, and he did a profanity based rant on the show last night. However, out of respect for Ryan Mallett and out of respect for our audience, you're not going to get a rant. You're not going to get a profanity based type of deal from me. What you will get is a little history. What you will get is history of the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame that I take real serious. Absolute, real serious, no doubt about it. And I want to give everybody a history because, to be honest with you, there is Facebook pages and there's websites that's questioning my integrity and reporting stuff that's just absolutely not true. One of the things I'll lead off with that they're reporting, and the guy that I was going to read an email from somebody, very insulting email, but then I think it's in bad taste now to cuss the guy or bad taste to read the entire message. But one thing that I wanted to tell you is that one of his biggest complaints is that I inducted myself into the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame, and that's absolutely not true. many people, including Kevin Lawler, including Jerry Lawler, including, there's just so many people close to me say, hey, you invented this sucker. It came from you. You need to be in the thing. You've done more for it than anybody. Randy West, my friend, is one of the people that has argued with me and will, I am sure, make a comment today that I'm not making it up and putting words in his mouth, that he has said that, and he has encouraged me to be to put myself into the Hall of Fame. It's been my feeling then and now is, first of all, I don't deserve it. And second of all, more than important than anybody, it will kill the credibility of the Hall of Fame. It will kill the credibility. I won't. Pat is itching to say a word, and I was going to do the history here, but Pat's got to talk here.
You're the only person on earth that feels that way. You are the only
No,
person on earth that feels that way.
I should send you that message that I got yesterday. There's people that think that, but you
No,
know,
no, no,
from
no, no. Not that you put yourself in there. We all know that's not true. But that you. I mean, if you're not in there, they shouldn't be a Hall of Fame. Everybody knows that. I appreciate that, Randy. I do. That is an extremely uh, classy attitude you have toward it, and it speaks to who you are. But you know, everybody knows. I mean, the level of respect that you have from the Memphis wrestling community, and I'll allow our friends here to make their own comments about that, is unmatched anywhere. What you have done for Memphis wrestling over three separate promotions or four is unmatched anywhere.
let's get to the history. And I just got a message from Michael St. John, and he's on, just got home, and so he will be out. And if I can do instructions to the producer, just watch for Michael. But just, I want everybody to know, and we'll get through some of it and break away and come back to it when Michael gets on. The very first Hall of Fame class, and we'll go to you, Pat, after I read them to see if you honestly have any issues with this. The first Hall of Fame class of the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame was Sam Bass, Christine Jarrett, Tojo Yamamoto, Don and Al Green, Sputnik Monroe, Lance Russell. That was the first class of the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. Pat, do you have any issues at all with that first Hall of Fame?
No, I don't. Absolutely not.
And let me run over the second class that took uh, place a year later in 1995. The second class was Eddie Gilbert, Phil Hickerson, Joe LeDuc, Billy Wicks, and the fabulous Jackie Fargo. Do you have any issues with that, as Adam has it up there right now? Do you have any issues at all with the second class of the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame?
I don't at all.
Do
No,
you
not,
see my name on there at all?
I don't. I don't at all. No, I don't.
Then we will
Now,
just,
now, let me say this: all of them are deserving. Would I have put some in additionally in probably before some others? Probably, but that's just personal. There's nobody in that Hall of Fame that doesn't absolutely deserve it.
and later on, we will talk about Lance Russell and Dave Brown inducted as a team April the 22nd, 2017. And if I didn't say it, Lance Russell was inducted in the first class as a team with Dave in April the 22nd of 2017. Also, we did a ceremony March the 13th, 2017. We'll talk about that as Adam's scrolling it down, as you can see it. Also, at the April the 16th in Jackson, Tennessee, September 18th, 2021 at the casino in Mississippi. I just wanted to make this clear. In 2022, Kevin Lawler started doing putting people in that had passed away, also created a celebrity wing, also did one event at a casino, and I had nothing. I agreed with some, disagreed with some, didn't veto anybody because he was the guy doing the work. There's no doubt about it, and we'll talk about that. Remember, folks, as we come back to me, there will be no rant, no cussing somebody out that I had planned to do. We will not do that. I will update Michael St. John right now, and if we can get that graphic up there of Ryan again, so Michael will know how we let off the show today. The world of athletics, the world lost Ryan Mallett today in Florida at 35 years old. He was born in 1988 in Batesville, Arkansas. He graduated in Texarkana, Arkansas. He drowned today and passed away in Florida. He started his college career in Michigan in 2008. He played for the Arkansas Razorbacks 2010, and then he also played NFL football for the Patriots, the Texans, and the Ravens. He was the current, since last year, head high school football coach in Whitehall, Arkansas. We've devoted a lot of the show today, Michael, to that breaking news, as we unfortunately had to do with the wrestling business several times. We start with that news. Welcome to the show. And before you do your official first take, respond to that sad news and what's going on with all the drownings in Florida and that part of the country. It's just started, the summer season started off rough. And welcome to the show, Michael St. John.
Thank you, Randy. Hello, Pat. Good to be here. I heard that about Ryan Mallett earlier today. Outstanding athlete, good quarterback, big guy. I can't answer that, Randy. I wish I could. My sister lives in Panama City, on the west side of Panama City. She's one creek away, or one inlet away from Walton County, and it's just unfortunate. She has been telling me, though, that the riptides down there have been very, very rough. Did he drown I heard that he had drowned, but I didn't know if he drowned in the ocean or if he drowned in a lake or a pool or whatever. But
No, it was in the ocean in
it was in
Destin.
the ocean. It's very sad, very sad.
Terrible situation. Welcome to the show. Running a little behind today. The first take from Michael St. John.
The reason I'm running behind.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Okay, so I'm on the world tour today. We're selling football advertising for the upcoming season, which is less than 6 weeks away. And so I made a little circle, ended up in Decatur and Huntsville, and then back to home base. And when I left Huntsville, I had a failure over the weekend while I was gone on a trip up north. And with the baby, I lost my backup hard drive, which was an external drive driven by the motorized drive. Had it about 6 years, had over 10 years of archives of the radio station. We keep everything we cut, whether it's a commercial, a jingle, a sweeper, whatever. We keep a copy of it. And anyway, it locked up and it couldn't get it to work. So took it in on Monday. And our computer guy, Chad Sanders, who was excellent, did everything in his power to get it back going. I bought a solid state hard drive, or for it out external hard drive. Couldn't get the information off of it, so I've had to send it off to a clean room in Florida through my friend who manages the Staples in North Huntsville. It's Staples Office Supply, Guns and Ammo. And so I was on that side of town. And coming back, I said, I'm not going to have time to grab me something and fix something real quick. Normally, I get back to the house here for this show by 6, eat something, get my notes, get on the program. Well, it didn't work out that way tonight. And I ordered from a place called Nothing But Noodles, who always has a good quick meal. Ordered it, picked it up, ordered beef stroganoff, got home, and God only knows what I got. All I know is it had like zucchini and cabbage and a little couple of little hard, tough pieces of meat and mushrooms and some kind of creamy sauce. So I was very disappointed, ate the salad and called and was on the phone with the manager when 7 o'clock rolled around, but they're going to reward me with a new meal, of course. But it's just disappointing when you're ready to go and ready to, do things the right way and get it done right and ready to eat. And lo and behold, something goes haywire. So I don't know if it's the sign of the times or it's my bad luck, but whatever the case, that's my first take tonight. And oh, by the way, just for the record, I had a Caesar salad. Okay. Best Caesar salad I've ever had. And Pat, you're going to love this. The Sheraton Mountain Brook, back in the day when they had a restaurant that was really good. They had the best Caesar salad on the face of the earth. And they made it right there table side. And it was, I've eaten Caesar salad everywhere from New York to LA to San Francisco to Dallas to every other town I've ever been. It's one of my favorite salads, that and a good Greek salad, but you got to be at a Greek restaurant to get a good Greek salad. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that along. My culinary ventures, I may not look like a foodie, especially with my beautiful physique, cough, cough, but I love good food. And unfortunately tonight I was looking forward to something good old beef stroganoff over fettuccine noodles. And I got
whatever.
Cabbage.
Got whatever. This is the June 27th version of Talking Memphis Wrestling. Kind of arranging stuff here. Pat Trammell, Michael St. John. I'm Randy Hills. Adam Dunn's birthday is tomorrow. His 38th birthday, and he is here in Jonesboro. He's right over there, other side of the room, and he's at my kitchen table is actually where he is. And right now we're going to do a thing, and Michael St. John missed the first 30 minutes of the show, and I'm going to put him to work and give him some producer, creator comments. I want you, when you see a picture on the screen, just quickly run through this. Then we have a very interesting video involving Michael St. John that I'll pitch to, but we're just going to show a few pictures of our subject last week, the fabulous Jackie Fargo. Just narrate this as we go through them quickly. Here you go, Michael.
Fargo at his early days, in his prime, and what a guy, what a physique. What I guess those are doves on the, we were trying to figure out the tattoos, and he was the first tattooed wrestler I ever worked with, but the fabulous one, nobody better. And there he is with one of his proteges, Jerry Jarrett, both of them in wrestling heaven now. Probably tagging together, probably listening to this show, even as we thank Pally. Love to work with Jackie. Jackie being held by Jerry Lawler, and I want to say maybe that's Jim White.
Yes.
Putting it into him, laying it in on that one. Lawler and White were a great tag team.
This is one of my favorite pictures, Michael, to interrupt you. I love Fargo's black eye. Tojo's
black eye. Yeah, Tojo with the black eye, and Jerry Jarrett with the long hair, and Jackie still had those bangs, but that is a great photo. And that was taken, I believe, backstage at the Memphis Mid-South Coliseum. It looks like from the walls behind it.
Yes.
This is Andre the Giant and Jackie Fargo. I want to say this was a show that he did with Nick. Probably in the 78 or 79. Andre's still in good shape there, and Fargo still looks like Fargo. Was Fargo the first one to wear the Olympic double strap tights in this area, Randy? I think he was.
As far as I know.
Yep. Good picture, though.
Can I ask a question, Michael?
Yes, sir.
It seemed to me, and Randy, you too, it seemed to me that very rarely was Andre brought to Memphis. But I think Nick brought Andre into the Birmingham and the Nashville end fairly regularly.
when Nick needed a boost, and he told me there were a couple of ways there were a couple of people he would turn to, and he know immediately he'd pump the houses. One was Fargo, and the other one was Andre. And when Andre came, people would come to watch and see Andre the Giant like people go to see the Budweiser Clydesdales. It's an attraction. And Nick knew he'd get a good house out of it. Now he's got both of them together. I'm sure that was a sellout.
I would think so. And are you thinking that's at the Municipal Auditorium in Nashville?
Yes, I do. I do. From the way of the darkness in the background and so forth, I think that's at the Municipal.
There is a clip somewhere that I have seen, and I don't want to get off of Fargo,
No, please don't.
of Andre doing a drop kick, and surprisingly agile at his size.
This picture is of the original, I believe, Southern Junior Heavyweight Championship that ended up in the Southern Heavyweight title, Michael.
I think you're right. In fact, I know that belt, have actually held that belt, and it was originally the Southern Junior Heavyweight Championship held by the man out of the picture to the right of Jackie Fargo, which is Lynn Rossi. And Lynn held that belt for a long time, and that was the Southern Junior Heavyweight belt. And I think ultimately it was renamed and reissued as the Southern Heavyweight belt early on. The plate, by the way, if we go back to that real quick, you see there's a plate in the center which said what the championship was, but those plates on either side originally were engraved with the name of the current champion as the championship would change hands. So there were basically a history of that belt literally engraved on that belt on those plates.
Where is that belt today, Michael? Would you have any idea?
You know, I would think, and maybe and I'm not for sure of this, but I think Jerry Lawler has that belt. I think he has that original belt.
Okay.
This is an all-star team. My God, Jimmy Cornette, Jackie Fargo, Bill Dundee, the Soul Man Rocky Johnson, and the Boogie Woogie Man, Handsome Jimmy. And boy, I would think that would have to have been taken in Memphis or Louisville after or before one of the shows. Jimmy's dressed up like he's going on TV, so that's why I say that.
Mark from Kentucky asking, if that was a NWA belt? It started as the NWA Southern Junior Heavyweight Championship.
That's right. Thank you. You're right, Mark.
When it was changed to a heavyweight title in 1974, when Jerry Jarrett decided to make this tag team territory a single territory, then obviously it was changed forever. As we go to the next picture, one of my favorite of all time. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, we saw this last week. This is great. This is the fabulous Jackie Fargo, Miss Christine Jarrett, the mother of Jerry Jarrett and the grandmother of Jeff. And of course, Sonny Fargo, who became known later in his career as Roughhouse Fargo. Sonny Fargo was one of the top referees in the Carolinas for the Crockett's for a long time.
No doubt. We have two more. I'll go through this one real quick. The Wrestling News Magazine on the cover of it, the fabulous Jackie Fargo. And our final picture here. This is classic badass Jackie Fargo. I would think here, Michael, from 70 to 73.
Yeah, maybe 74. If you notice, it's very prevalent. He had that scar to the side of his face. He got cut. And on this picture, it's his left side, our right side, but the scar is much more prominent here. And I think he got cut. I want to say he got cut in 68 or 69 after a match. And that scar is more prevalent there than it is in some of the older pictures or newer pictures of Jackie.
Very good. And that's a great little thing, part two of the Jackie Fargo story. We mentioned one thing, and we showed a picture of Michael St. John, my man, Michael St. John, the star of this show. I got that in, even though you were an hour late. You did that on purpose. I don't buy the story that you got the food order wrong. You thinking you could sneak in here and I wouldn't have time. I was born at night, but not last night. So you plotted this. Just thinking that I wouldn't get that line in. We showed the picture last week. PJ, bless her heart, she's a doll, and she found the video that we'll play right now, and I have not watched this. This is Michael St. John.
America and the world. He was probably the first true superstar in professional wrestling, selling out the legendary Madison Square Garden in 1958. He came to Nashville, Tennessee, and we all grew up and learned to love and respect one of the toughest, one of the roughest. Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary, the fabulous Jackie Fargo!
Wow.
And we're back.
That was a great night. That was a great night. And he was legitimately overwhelmed. There were tears in his eyes. He saw a lot of fans that came out to see him that used to come every week to the Nashville Fairgrounds, and before that, the Hippodrome Arena in Nashville, Tennessee. So that was a great night for the fabulous one.
What year was this?
I want to say that was 08, maybe 07, 08.
And we lost Jackie Fargo in 2013.
Yeah. It was about 07, 08. I know that evening was a long, and I think I told you last week or had mentioned the air conditioning in the building had gone out and was non-existent, and it was a July 25th show, I believe. But I want to thank Paniti for digging that up. Boy, what a library gem that is. Thank you so much, my friend.
Yeah, isn't she something else? I mean, she is great. She's our most valuable player. Pat, Adam and I here in Jonesboro, as Michael will let you know, Adam is here with me today. He is in Jonesboro, and we're celebrating his 38th year on the earth. It's his birthday tomorrow. Pat, you look like, as we were watching you, you were grinning ear to ear during the entire segment.
I think about that, and when you get out of high school, you go back the next year, and everybody, hey, how you doing? And you hadn't flunked out of college and all that stuff. Jackie Fargo came back to Nashville 50 years after he was wrestling in that area, and still at 40 years at least, and still people turned out and cheered him like he was the biggest baby face in the history of the territory. I love that. That's why I love this so much. That's exactly why this means so much to me. Unbelievable. Wow.
Wow, it's just something. And Michael, you've done a lot of stuff, radio, done a lot of television, all that. This was, as you guess, this was done in 2008. Jackie Fargo is no longer with us. Jerry Jarrett, Eddie Marlin, Tojo. We can go on, and we will as we get into the conversation on the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. I think when you first entered the backstage area, you heard what I was discussing, the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. But anyway, just your thoughts now as honestly a 70-year-old plus gentleman, as you see that back in 2008 and you reflect on all the memories with Jackie Fargo. Is there any way possible to put that in words?
It more so I could put it in emotions than in words. And you got to realize that getting to work with the man that really spiked my interest in professional wrestling when I was in grade school and junior high school, and 54 consecutive Friday nights at the Patton Street Army in Huntsville, Alabama, right off Walker Street, where I grew up. And Fargo and Tojo were in some kind of brawl every week as the main event. I mean, emotionally, it overwhelms me. You wish, and I know everybody has this wish sometimes in life, but you wish that you could bring back an icon like that in this day and time for 24 hours and just reestablish what that person was and means in this day and time. I know that's impossible to do, at least at this period in history, but there are a few on the face of the earth that I'd love to bring back right now just to get a take, and Jackie Fargo is one of them. One other thing I got to answer, when we were on our trip the other day, I got to ask a question by my daughter-in-law, Katie, and she knows the wrestling history, and of course she loves the fact that when little man's around here, he's on this show, and little man, I think I texted you, Randy, last week, Pat, we got off the show, and he was talking, and I said, he said, bye-bye, Randy, as we were going off.
Yeah, I heard that. I was thrilled to that.
So I clicked off, and as I did, I turned to him. He said, I like Randy.
Yeah, all right.
I like Randy. And it just, the warm thing in your heart. But Katie asked me a question. She said, of all the professional people you have worked with, is there any professional athlete or wrestler that you wished you could have worked with that you
Good question.
Opportunity? And it is. She's a very astute lady, and I love her like my own. And I thought for a second, and there's probably some, but I had the honor of, working with Luthez once and meeting him twice, and working with Harley and calling a match and those kind of things. But the one person that came to mind, and he worked the Pacific or the Northeast, but I always respected him as and I got to meet him one time, but I never got to work with him, was Larry Zbyszko. And I just and I know a lot of people don't say kind things about him because he had a reputation of being a not so nice person in the locker room, but I always thought he was a second generation wrestler. Everything he made great promos. I really liked the way he worked in the ring. Wish we had more people to do that, but he would be one. But I thought that was a poignant question.
See, that kind of stuff bothers you than me. This don't bother me. I know I am. I don't care. Go ahead.
I was finished with what I was
Pat
saying.
had his hand raised, I believe. Pat, would you like to make a comment?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I didn't think I had it raised. I was just thinking, Michael, to put what you in perspective. It would be great to ride with Fargo and Tojo one week.
I've done the Tojo thing, not the Fargo thing.
Well, I envy you, my friend. Just and Randy, I mean, I trade. I mean, I just, to be in those cars on those rides in the middle of the night, hearing the stories. I would love that so much with somebody like Fargo and Tojo. Maybe Sam Bass.
One of my favorite, and you hit a great point, Pat. One of my favorite things I ever did was when I was going down to Memphis after Dave Brown's tragedy with losing his daughter, and then after Lance had his first heart attack, and I was meeting Eddie Marlin and Jerry Jarrett, and Tojo would meet us at the Exxon station right there on Main Street in Hendersonville and Bonita Parkway at 5:30 in the morning on a Saturday, and drive to Memphis and just be an ear in the back. And most of the time I rode in the back seat with Tojo, and Tojo was fairly quiet, but when Tojo spoke, he spoke volumes. And of course, Eddie was tremendous to ride with. Eddie, I'm sure Randy can vouch for that. And so was Jerry Jarrett. And most of the time they were talking about what we were going to do on TV that day. And I always felt like that was a great opportunity to do my pre-show homework, if you would. And I always felt that when I did that, I was better prepared once the lights went on and the camera went on. And Randy, I know Eddie Marlin has some fabulous stories about riding the roads back in the 50s and 60s.
Oh, absolutely. There's millions and millions of stories, and they're just classic. One thing we're going to do now, a YouTube video that I found that we're going to close out the story on Jackie Fargo. We'll change things up a little bit after we come out of the video. We'll go directly to Pat, then to Michael. Then I'll have a final words about Jackie Fargo. We can't do a Talk to Memphis Wrestling. We probably mention his name every week because you can't talk history of Memphis Wrestling without talking the fabulous Jackie Fargo. So we're going to watch that video. I'm not going to really set it up. We're just going to play this video.
Hi, folks. This is your wrestling buddy, the fabulous one, Jackie Fargo. Often imitated, but never duplicated. No way. I've seen a lot of people try to do that Fargo strut. Don't work, pally. I was an amateur wrestler, and we went to Goldsboro, Tennessee, and I won the state champion. And this guy said, "Can I see you a moment?" I said, "Sure. How would you like to come down here and wrestle for us?" I said, "Gee, I don't know about that." I said, "How much money can I make?" He said, "You can clear about $100 a week." I said, "Oh my gosh, yeah, man, back in them days, $100 was a lot of money." So I wrestled down there for 4.5 weeks, and I was coming back to the Carolinas, and this guy said, how would you like to go to Florida and wrestle? I said, oh man, me, little old country boy going to Florida to wrestle? Heck yeah, I'd love that. So I went down there, and the people really took to me for some reason. Little old, it embarrassed me in one way, and then another way, after I thought about it for years, he introduced me, sent down from heaven and left a God's gift of women, the honey boy Fargo. I said, oh my God, that was my name, honey boy Fargo, that somebody had hung on me. And I got ready to leave there, and this guy said, hey, he said, you ever been to Cuba? I said, Lord, no. Is that part of the United States? And I said, no, I've never been there. He said, well, I'm from there, and I'm one of the promoters. Is this thing going all right?
Yeah, this is great.
And he said, I'm one of the promoters, and he said, I'd like to have you come over there for 4 or 5 weeks. He said, $250 a week and all expenses paid. Hotel, the best hotel, and nicest place. I said, $250 a week? My God, that's a gold mine. So I wound up going over there, and the people like me. I don't know why, because, you know, and I wrestled over there, and I really, the beaches were so beautiful, and water blue, and the sand was white, and got ready to come home. He said, how would you like to stay another 4 or 5 weeks? I said, oh man, he said, I'm gonna give you $350 a week. Me, little old me? He said, yeah. And I said, man, yeah, I'd love to. So 2 days later, I get a letter. Dear Mr. Jackie Fargo, Uncle Sam wants you. There I am, had to leave there and go in the Army, which I don't mind. I served my country, and I'm proud that I did. And but when I came back out of the Army, well, Castro, I think, was in there then, and there was no chance of getting back in there. But what an experience that was, and they really treated me like a king over there, treated me real good. I got mad in New York. I was living right down at 44th and what's the big avenue there? And you have to fight every day. All them taxi drivers run over you, or drug addicts, you know, you got to fight every day there. So I just made up my mind, and I was ready to fight every day I went out of my hotel, but I didn't like it. I went into the hotel, and I said, morning, ma'am. She looked at me like, what the hell you want? Good morning. I said, I want me a couple of eggs and some bacon and grits. What the hell are bacon and eggs and grits? I said, you know, puck, 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 puck. She said, I don't know what you're talking about. Do you know what this man's talking about? He said, no. So after I was there for 3 or 4 weeks, I got where I'd go in there and say, hey, you old bag, give me a couple of eggs here and some bacon. Yes, sir, Mr. Fargo, nice, man. Good to see you. How are you today? Oh, they thought they would buy me drinks to get me to talk for them. So I just sit there and yak all night. It didn't cost me nothing to drink. 6 or 7 cancer doctors called me from Vanderbilt Hospital. And they said, Mr. Fargo? I said, yeah. They said, we got a sorry about that. So we got a young man out here that can't live over 4 or 5 weeks, and his life dream is to meet Jackie Fargo. And I said, oh, well, that's no problem. He said, we'll get TV and newspaper. And I said, no, I don't need no publicity. I've got everybody knows who Jackie Fargo is. And I walked into that room, the doctors and nurses, and I have never, what I would give for that face. That kid's face lit up like I'll never forget it. I can close my eyes and see it. And he said, come here, boy. I said, if I come over, I'm going to put the atomic drop on you. He said, I might put it on you. You know, we exchanged. And he wanted to hug my neck. I went over and he hugged my neck. And the doctors all thanked me and everything. I said, yeah, I want to thank you for inviting me out. I said, it's done my heart a lot of good. And he said, well, I said, I want to come back and see him. He said, well, you better come soon because he can't live over 4 or 5 weeks. I took him a watch and pictures and little souvenirs. That kid went home and lived over a year. Them doctors said, we don't know why, how, or what. He said, but that kid came home and lived over a year, and we didn't expect him to make it through next week. I guess that was about the best and the greatest and the best thing that ever happened to me in the wrestling business. That little old boy was so sweet, bless his heart. He wanted to meet Jackie Fargo. What an honor for me. That was such a pleasure for him to want to meet me of all the people, you know. About gets to me every time I talk about him. Fine young man.
Very powerful. We wanted to come right back to me because I want to, before we go to Pat, give some credit here. Those were outtakes and part of the great Memphis Heat documentary movie that was in theaters in the Memphis territory area. It was produced by Ron Hall. Folks, that's still available to buy, and that's available to see digitally by buying the thing. So Memphis Heat is a remarkable movie documentary about Memphis wrestling. So check it out. Thank you very much for putting that story together in that great movie. The last story from Jackie Fargo would put a tear in anybody. Pat, I don't know if you've seen that clip before. How awesome, to quote Al Tuttle, how awesome that was.
Yeah, I mean, I quote Al and I quote PJ. That's one of the greatest stories I've ever heard in my life, about wrestling or anything else. I didn't know. I certainly hope that all those outtakes from Ron and everything he's done with Memphis Heat are being preserved in some kind of way. And I don't know where you got a hold of that, but I mean that is the history. I mean that's why we love this stuff. That guy was in Cuba before Castro, and he wrestled, was part of the business into the 21st century. And that's just that's a it's hard for me to talk after that. I mean, my goodness, what a life. What a life.
Michael St. John, your comments as we continue our Jackie Fargo story here tonight after that strong words.
That really that touches you as deep as a human being can be touched. I will tell you that's not the only Jackie Fargo story in that regard. If I may, when he came, and I think Randy West was filming when he came to Nashville, I want to say in 1979 or 80. And we were in the back. We actually were shooting promo there was the curtains that led out into the fairgrounds arena and the new fairgrounds arena at that time. And they're behind the curtains. They'd set up a one-shot camera. I think Randy was up on the back end of a riser. And we did an interview with Jackie, and I think we did an interview for Memphis and Louisville, if I'm not mistaken. And there was a little girl, probably 5 or 6 years old, severely, I don't know what the correct word to use, but with severe deficits in her physical ability. And her dad was there, and you could tell that they probably used everything they had money wise to come to that show that night. And she was in the wheelchair right by the babyface dressing room, and he saw her, and he brought her right in the middle, or right at the end when we were doing those promos. He brought her back behind the curtain, and the little girl's face lit up like, the common word is like a Christmas tree, but lit up like a rainbow. And he took his time and signed her. She had a program, and he signed that, and he had pictures taken with her. And Fargo was a kind-hearted soul, and maybe he was rough and tough back in the New York days, but as his legacy grew, the more his legacy grew, the kinder he became. And I think any wrestler, anybody that remembers him or worked with him or knows him from that time would certainly agree to that.
Exceptional documentary, exceptional man, often imitated, never duplicated. The fabulous Jackie Fargo, a footprint of our generation now in Memphis, Tennessee. The first stars were Billy Wicks and Sputnik Monroe. Wasn't around quite then, speaking for myself, but the first star of Memphis wrestling I remember is the fabulous Jackie Fargo. And we all remember when we were kids pretending like we were our favorite wrestlers. Guys, how many people do you think in our territory, on the playground at school, in the bedroom at home, at the city park, wherever, was doing atomic knee drops, was doing the Fargo strut, was saying pally, all the things? Just absolutely the effect he had. And you can't, the first thing that comes to mind, and Michael, we both have said this a million times, as far as influences, who had a greater influence on the King, on Jerry Lawler, than Jackie Fargo did? Nobody. In the Memphis territory, the fabulous ones, Stan Lane and Steve Kern were great wrestlers, but really wasn't over in Memphis. They put Jackie Fargo doing that promo. Randy West shot that video, Everybody Wants You, by Billy Squire. And then all of a sudden they were big stars, even years and years after he retired as an active wrestler. Because in 1980, he went on Memphis TV and was presented by photographer Jim Cornetto Award for his retirement in honor of Jackie Fargo. That was in 1980. The Fabs came along in 81 or 82, and the worst is history. And the great part of this thing, we spent so much of our show last week and so much of our show tonight talking about a gentleman that was a professional wrestler, main eventing Madison Square Garden in 1957, and we're talking about him today in high esteem, like we are, Michael.
Absolutely. And he was a trailblazer. I had heard he wrestled in Cuba, but never knew the story behind it. And I think tonight, in watching that outtake, I learned something of how he got to Cuba. And of course, back in those days, gosh knows what $350 in those days would mean today for wrestling there. But he wasn't. It wasn't a time where we had global phenomena or even national phenomena, because television was still in its early days. Radio was a little bit more mature, but you didn't get a lot of wrestling radio programs at all. In fact, I think there were only, from my research, there were only 2 wrestling shows that were ever broadcast on radio in play-by-play fashion, and one was on WMAQ in Chicago with the from the I guess it was the Olympic Auditorium in Chicago. The other one was in L.A., so one of them was at the Olympics, so it may have been in L.A. But KRLA back in the early days in the 50s did a live wrestling show from the Olympic in Los Angeles, but on a weekly basis. But Fargo, when you look at the footprint that the fabulous Jackie Fargo created, you talk about big boots to fill. I don't think there's a wrestler today, and I don't think perhaps there has been a wrestler, maybe Ric Flair would come close, but ever a pure wrestler that was as influential in what other wrestlers mimicked or copied or decided to partake of their own style than the fabulous Jackie Fargo.
Yeah, I think there's absolutely no doubt about it. This is the June 23rd Talking Memphis Wrestling. Hello, everybody. Randy Hills, Pat Trammell, Michael St. John, produced by somebody that's just right over there at my kitchen table. Happy birthday to Adam Dunn. And we're going to flip gears a little bit. And Adam, if you would go ahead, we're going to do a little current wrestling. I swear we'll get back and talk about other things regarding to Memphis wrestling. And we will talk about the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. Adam, if you could put the Forbidden Door. Pat had asked me on the phone the other day if I was going to watch Forbidden Door, and I didn't have any plans to, but was invited by somebody to come over, but he had purchased us, and we watched the thing. And if you could mute our cameras where we can have that Forbidden Door more center stage. It was a pay-per-view that was on BR Bleacher Report Live, and it was Sunday night. The negative thing, I'll start from the beginning. The pre-show started at 6. The show wasn't over to 11, and that's a lot of wrestling. That is a ton of wrestling. That is more wrestling that people needed to see, and that's more wrestling that I needed to see. It drew in Toronto, Canada, 10,888 people. It did over $1.2 million gate, the $3 million gate. Well, I think absolutely it was the biggest gate in the history of AEW, and the 3rd biggest gate, WrestleMania of the past, has by the WWE, has the record. But it was a financially successful show, and I just wanted to make just some results real quick. I know there's a lot of things out there in podcasts and others that if you want deep, detailed reports, I'll certainly suggest, if you reach me, the people to listen to, that you can get a good review. Real quick, we'll run over the results. I thought the opening match for the AEW Heavyweight Championship was MJF over Tanahashi, and I like that match. And it's weird, the world title match on first. However, 2 things: Tanahashi, a great wrestler. He's could hardly walk. They put him on first, but they had a story. MJF said in his contract he has the power to dictate what order his match will be, and that he didn't want to spend any more time in Canada than he had to, so he insisted on being on first. I thought that covered the deal. He got the victory with a Memphis type of finish with that diamond ring and a screw, and it was great. I gave the match a B minus. I gave the announce crew, and this is I'll have to explain this. I gave the announce crew A if you throw out the mask guy Excalibur. His part I gave a D minus to. Uh, absolutely, absolutely. Tony Khan has to love this guy or he wouldn't be on there. I think he's horrible. I think he's embarrassing. I don't think there's anything good about him. However, in that first match, I thought Kevin Kelly, I think, is arguably the best play-by-play announcer in current wrestling, helped get that match over. He did a great job, as did Taz. The Owen Hart tournament match where CM Punk defeated Kojima in Canada. Punk was a heel and worked like a heel. I gave that a B plus. He just played with the crowd. The crowd was just not liking him, and that's the way he did it. He didn't switch heel, but he relished in that thing. So that was an interesting match. Punk over Kojima. The third match was a four-way international title match that I didn't like. I didn't even grade. Orange Cassidy against Shibata versus Daniel Garcia versus Zack Sabre Jr. And Orange Cassidy has the winningest win streak in AEW right now. Explain that. And I ain't Jim Cornette, and I don't hate Orange Cassidy, but too much is too much for sure. Then Sonata, who I've seen had great matches in New Japan, the people was very smart to New Japan wrestlers in Toronto. However, they weren't real smart to Sonata. Sonata ended up defeating Jungle Boy Jack Perry, who had Hook, Taz's son, in the corner. I gave the match a B minus, and then after the match, Jungle Boy turned on Hook. I gave that a A. The reaction from Hook's father Taz on commentary, I gave an A plus 2. Great job that he walked off the set and was not back the rest of the show. Then they brought out Michael's buddy, Tony Schiavone, to finish the show, Sonata over Jungle Boy. The fifth match, Eddie Kingston, Ishii and the Bucks and Page against the Black Combat Club. People liked it, gave it an A. In reaction, I gave it a D. Tony Storm over Willow Nightingale, I gave a C minus or a D. Then in a match, Dave Meltzer, and even I heard Bully Ray and Mark Henry and a lot of people put it over. A lot of fans put it over, really enjoyed it. There was a lot of action, but some of the stuff just wasn't my type of wrestling. Just personal preference. But Will Ospreay defeated Kenny Omega. I even say that even though it's not my type of match, I would say a A or A plus, 30 minutes, and it was just a very good match. There's no doubt about it. Then Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara, and Suzuki lost to Sting, Darby Allin, and Naito in a match I gave a B minus. They did crazy stuff where Sting was one of the ones hurt, and then because of that, he was not goofy, and he missed spot after spot, and I felt bad there. And then New Japan's top guy, Okada, against Bryan Danielson. I give that a A to a A plus. Enjoyed it. A wrestling match. They sewed stuff. They did some modern stuff, but I really, really enjoyed it. There is no doubt that I did, and it was worth watching. So your thoughts, Pat Trammell, on my review of Forbidden Door?
Well, it was interesting. I'm anxious to hear Cornette's take on some of this because I know how much he loathes Kenny Omega. But I heard from several people, Matt Toon and some others on Twitter. I didn't watch it, as you know, but that the Omega and Osprey match was one of the better matches they'd seen all year.
Some people saying best match ever, and it's personal preference. It really is, and I'm just saying they worked hard like a son of a gun. There's no doubt about it. I'm not knocking that, but obviously that crowd, that almost 13,000 people, and that $1.2 million, they enjoyed it. So, Michael, have you heard any reports, anything about the Forbidden Door pay-per-view?
Well, other than the fact, here in Huntsville over the weekend, Conrad Thompson had his Top Guy weekend for all his Patreon subscribers that spend more than $100 a month on those podcasts. And Jeff Jarrett rather was booked in Toronto and was not supposed to be here, and then he ended up being here on I guess it was Saturday night or Saturday afternoon late, and it was sort of a surprise, I think. I did not see. I saw some highlights. I did not see it. I'm not big on buying pay-per-views on anything, but I think I bought one in my life, and it was the time that Mike Tyson bit off Evander Holyfield's ear, and it lasted about 2 minutes, and I had spent like $60. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. But I really think, and just watching the program, first of all, I think Tony's got something good, dynamite going on Saturday night. He's got lightning in a bottle if he doesn't screw it up. And I want to say, and I said this before, and now I'm saying it even more so, since Jeff Jarrett's arrival at AEW has gotten better. And I can't help but think it's Jeff's influence.
One thing I want to add to this and see if this can concern you. I think the debut edition, and I know it was debut, and they were hyping Punk and everything they did, and they did about 850,000 people on the views, and it dropped 28% to 300 and something thousand people. So how, obviously the debut show is going to get the big numbers, but how concerned would you be as a programmer on that second week? I would be more concerned, and I think it would be more of a fair assessment when we see the third week number and the fourth week number.
I don't believe, and again, I think things take time to develop. Things take time to if you would, sink in. I think we would be rushing to judgment to even judge that. Also, the worst time to debut a television program, the worst time of the year is right now, because people are more active. Weather is better all over the country. I know there was some rain and storms in some parts of the country over the weekend, but for the most part, Saturday night, people are out doing stuff. They take their family to dinner. They go out and maybe see a movie or go out and do something. People are more active on the weekend, and especially on Saturday nights, more so than even Friday nights or Sunday nights. So if you've got a TV show that's in its second week and the numbers are down, if this were the end of November going into Christmas when people were more locked at home, or in January, I'd say, well, that's a little troubling or concerning. At this point in time, let it bake in. I mean, if anything, this society has, anything that humanity is doing right now, we're more impatient than ever. We're more out of control than ever. And we don't let things sink in. I mean, everything is now. And I think it affects everything, including ratings on the wrestling show. I did not, I'll be honest with you. One of those dealerships. We've been helping our neighbors.
Go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
Is that a commercial? I did not see but about 15 minutes of the show Saturday night. We were just getting back from Cincinnati. And what I saw, I liked. But you're absolutely right on Kevin Kelly, without a doubt. And I have a question here, and I'm probably going to open up a can of worms, and Conrad Thompson is probably not going to be happy with me. But why in the blue hell is Conrad and Tony Schiavone doing a show about Memphis wrestling? Tony Schiavone doesn't know Memphis wrestling no more than he knows brain surgery. And God love Conrad. I mean, he knows from the fact that he's watched film and watched tape of it and respects it very much so, which I understand. But I was really sort of disappointed that, you've got this show, which is Memphis wrestling to the core. We've all been involved in it directly. And then you've got another show that's being done, I want to say out of England or something. And I think it's more of a review show, which is fine. But I just don't understand why Conrad, who really has a masterful array of great shows, has taken on Memphis wrestling as sort of an also ran. I think it diminishes the value of and the beauty and the legacy of Memphis wrestling, especially with somebody who was never involved in Tony Schiavone.
Hey, today is Conrad's birthday. So
happy birthday, Conrad. I love you, brother. And he's a great guy. By the way, if you guys have ever met him or have the chance to meet him, I think he's a great guy. He's a good friend. I have a lot of respect for him. He has done for this business more with his startup cottage industry. These podcasts were nothing before Conrad Thompson got involved. So between Conrad Thompson and Jimmy Cornette, I think that's blown the roof off this thing, and I think it'll be bigger and better as time goes on. It's all kudos to him, but I take exception of the fact that they're talking about one of the most proficient wrestling organizations in the history of professional wrestling during the territory days, and it's not with people that were involved with it. That's where I take the exception.
Interesting point, Pat. Any comments?
Bluntly, I think Conrad's a smart guy. I think Tony Schiavone's a dipshit.
I couldn't have phrased that better.
Do you know him?
Yeah, I know him.
Do you?
Yeah.
Where did you meet him?
I met him. I met him online, and then I met him and spent some time with him at Nick Aldis and Cody in Nashville.
And he wasn't a nice guy?
He is what he is.
Aloof?
What?
Aloof? He's aloof?
Yeah, he's a mile wide, an inch deep. I just don't think he has a real deep, and this is unfair, okay? It is unfair. But, I think Tony likes being Tony. He likes being on TV. I don't think he has a real deep appreciation for the history and culture of wrestling. I don't think he's one of us.
My point, and I made this before about Tony, and not that I've met him. He's a cold fish when you meet him, and I don't like his handshake. And I do. When somebody shakes your hand, you sort of get a feel for it. And I always felt, for as much as I respect Jim Ross, and let's face it, and I'm not letting the cat out of the bag. I think anybody that has watched wrestling and watched AEW realizes God love Jim Ross, but he's had some bad things happen in his life, both physically to him and his health, and of course the tragic loss of his wife, which was nobody could ever get over that. And bless his heart, I'm glad I see Jim every week on the show, but he's not the same Jim Ross that we all knew and loved and grew up with in NWA or in Oklahoma or in New York. That being said, for as much as I hold him in high abeyance, I tend to agree with your assessment, Pat, on Tony Schiavone. I think he's shallow. When you watch some of the old WCW stuff and Georgia Championship Wrestling stuff and the stuff from Carolina, I never thought he added much to the program. I mean, he was a figurehead with a microphone, but I never felt I never felt his personality in the program. And as an announcer, you're not supposed to overshadow the wrestlers. My whole point from day one, I never wanted to be remembered for that matter. I never wanted to be a star or anything like that. That's why I get upset when Randy calls me a star. It really sort of cuts to my core, because that's not what I do or not what I did. What I did was do the best I could verbally and in the format of the program, put over the real stars of the show, who are the combatants in the ring, whether they're in an opening match or the main event. I don't care if people remember my name, but I hope they remember the guy in the first match. That's what my job was.
I've got a question to ask, and I think you all know I grew up on Georgia Championship and WCW, and so watched Tony Schiavone probably 95% of the time he was on the TV there. I can't think of one time that he added anything to the story of an angle. Now, that's not the case with David Crockett.
It's not the case with Jim Ross.
Oh, no, absolutely not the case with Jim Ross or Lance Russell or, hell, Sterling Brewer or, Jerry Lawler or a lot of them. But, Tony is a stick with a microphone.
You look at Lance Russell, and I saw a tape a couple of weeks ago of Lance when he was in Atlanta. And I really feel like they took Lance and thought they were okay, well, we're going to bring Lance Russell in. He's got this following and he's got this. But what they did is they put him in a box. And I think what Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler learned or knew about Lance and Dave, don't put them in a box. Let them do what they do. Because what they did got over what Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler were trying to get over. Every week, every show. And Randy, I'll ask you this. You were around those two quite a bit. Did you ever see them do a bad show?
No.
I didn't.
No, not at all. And
I never saw Bob Caudle do a bad show. I never saw Gordon Stoley do a bad show.
Absolutely. And
I've always thought, I agree with most that's been said here, except the fact that I thought David Crockett was one of the worst announcers I'd ever seen in my life.
I can't. I'm not going to fight you on that.
Let me throw in another name, and we're talking announcers, and I don't want to get us off track, Randy. Forgive me, but
we're already off the rails. Before we
it's fine. This is great.
Before we ever went on the air, we were off the rails. So don't worry about that.
My question is Mark Lawrence. Everybody that I've ever talked to that ever watched the old WCCW show on channel 11 KTTV in Dallas, or watched it on the satellite dish back in the day, Mark Lawrence seemed to be a very polarizing announcer. You either loved him or you didn't.
Yeah, I liked Mark Lawrence. I did. I didn't think he was one of the greatest, but I'm not going to knock him at all like we're knocking some people here. And I've always liked Tony Schiavone, but he wouldn't be in my top probably 35. But still, I obviously don't have as much anti-feelings about Tony as you guys do.
Well, let me say this too about AEW right now on the announcer side. To me, they have the two at the top of the chart with Kevin Kelly and Jim Ross. And they have the two, in my opinion, at the bottom of the chart with Mask, whatever his name is, and Tony Schiavone.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And I agree for sure. I agree that Excalibur, and it's just the Young Bucks, they liked him. Tony loves him. Tony is here's the deal, and I promise, because of the unfortunate breaking news we started the show with, I had hyped up a ranting interview, profanity-based, in defense of myself, and we're not going to go there today at all. However, I certainly, by the way, Randy West says, my buddy, Michael
that was my thumb up. Thumbs up to Randy.
And Randy Hills.
You're too kind, Randy. Thank you, sir.
Announcers, I appreciate that. Frank's saying, but you have to admit, no one wore a suit better
Then
than
Boyd
Boyd
Pierce.
Pierce. That's true. How about Bill Mercer, who was in Texas before Mark Lawrence? Did you like him? I thought he was pretty good.
Actually, before Bill Mercer was Brad Sham. And Brad Sham later became the voice of the Dallas Cowboys. And
Wow.
and Bill Mercer, I like Bill Mercer. Bill Mercer did a lot of regional sports on TV, football and basketball in the old Southwest Conference as well. So Bill was a true professional. And when I think to me, somebody that's a sports announcer can become a good wrestling commentator by using the basis of being a sports announcer and applying it to the wrestling scenario. And one of the best compliments I was ever paid. I go back to mention Jackie Fargo. Jackie Fargo said, "I really like the way you call a match." He says, "Because you sound like you're calling a football game." And to me, that was a compliment, because the legitimacy of football, baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever, and then the legitimacy of wrestling is a different style, but it's still there, and you've got to carry it over. So that's what I was, to be honest with you, to me, that was one of the nicest compliments I've ever received from, to me, one of the most proficient athletes ever in our sport.
Very good thoughts, and this has been a very, very good show as we've again got away from. That's the thing. This is live broadcasting, and we have to. It's our responsibility to deal with breaking news, and also I think it's our responsibility. I think we might get. It's called Talking Memphis Wrestling, but obviously, wrestling fans that like Memphis wrestling watch some of the current stuff, and I think it's our responsibility to kind of smarten them up and give our opinion of what's going on. And I think that's the deal. And I know what I was going to say when I got off track, and I think, and I don't, it's funny, when we first talked about AEW, I used to fuss at Michael St. John for knocking Tony Khan. Really want to make this point, and it's true, because I'm going to knock Tony Khan right now, and I've been thinking this for months, and I want you to, in the last minutes that we have on this show today, and we have about 19 minutes, we got plugs, so probably about 14 minutes of content. But I was listening to Busted Open, and I was listening to Bully Ray, and he had a great deal, because he was analyzing, and he's always honest, and he was saying what he liked and what he didn't like. And then he said, people, so I realize that AEW is a relatively new company. I realize that. And said, I also realize that the owner of that company and the booker of that company. And he said, this is so very important, and I pray that he learns from his mistakes. I hope he does. But he said, this is the only person in the history of this business that ever ran a wrestling company from any level, the smallest territory in the history of wrestling, and now he's running a worldwide wrestling promotion because he has every bit of money that he needs to go. But Tony Khan never learned from those that had done it before. Dusty Rhodes, Jerry Jarrett, and Bill Watts learned from Eddie Graham. Randy Hales learned from Jerry Jarrett, Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee. Jim Cornette learned from Bill Dundee, Cowboy Bill Watts, Jerry Jarrett. All of us, when we got into business, you learned, Michael, a lot about the wrestling business, which helped you sell when you were in that car like I was with Tojo Yamamoto, and certainly at a higher level with The Office with Jerry Jarrett and with Eddie Marlin. If you take a look at it, my biggest influence in wrestling from a booking level, I would say Lawler and Jarrett. Tony Khan's, and this is not a knock, it really is a knock, but it's honest to God truth. His biggest influence, who taught him wrestling and where he think he learned about storytelling and booking and everything else. Wait for it, people. Who do you think I'm saying that his biggest influence is? Any guesses, Michael? Because I'll tell you right now. Any guesses, Pat? Because I'll tell you right now.
Is
Tell
it
us right
somebody
now.
that works for his company?
No.
Okay.
Somebody that's never worked in a wrestling company in his life.
Does he write a magazine or a
Newsletter.
newsletter? Yeah.
You're on it.
Yep.
Dave
And it's true.
Meltzer.
Dave Meltzer.
Dave Meltzer. So
Let me ask a question. Dave Meltzer or Bill Apter? Who's better?
Good God Almighty, that's a dumb question. I'm insulted.
Damn.
That's
How
the
do you
dumbest,
really feel, Randy?
That's the
working
dumbest
him.
question I've ever
I was,
heard you say.
I was working him.
Well, you
Woo!
got it out of me.
He's
Dadgum
treating you
Bill,
like me, Michael.
Bill Apter. Obviously, he worked better than any of us. He sometimes put made up stuff, made up creative in his magazine that was better than what was really going on.
You're right. You're absolutely
Dave
right.
Meltzer is good at writing obituaries
Ooh.
and good at doing history pieces. Very good. Researches all that. He is, and I don't use this word often at all because I hate the word, but he's a mark. He's an absolute mark that thinks he really, honest to God, thinks he is the most creative and the smartest guy in the wrestling business. He really does. And that's sad, but he really, really does when he has not worked in a pro wrestling company ever. So the point of what I'm rambling on about is what Bully said about Tony Khan. He never had a chance to be mentored by so many people that could have taught him. He never took that because he's read and been an observer reader. He thinks he knows it all. Has he learned since they first went on there? Absolutely. Is he better than when he first went on the air? Absolutely. But at the same time, he made mistakes and is still making mistakes that if you're not have a background being groomed in this business and having the instinct to do this, you don't know. And because of the situation that he could afford, his family could afford to do it. And thank God for a lot of people. Wrestling fans is getting an alternative. And how long did it take, Michael, for WWE to be as good as it? How long had it been since WWE sucked? They get competition. Whether you say it's Triple H or whatever. But the fact is that they started getting better when they got competition. So thank God Tony Khan is around. Thank God. But does he have a long way to go? Yes, he does.
I totally agree with what you said. And remember, I think this every time you talk about competition. In radio, I was taught this years and years ago when I was a very young pup and 23 years old and programming WMPS in Memphis. Paul Drew told me, he was a great radio consultant and a guru in our business. He said, steel sharpens steel. And what he meant by that is when you're up against good competition, it makes you better. You may get your butt kicked, but it's going to make you better. And I totally agree with that. And I love that rant, Randy, that you just did. Does that make Tony Khan a Mark's Mark? Because and I agree with you, he got all of his influence from Bill Meltzer. But my question is, I really and maybe it's not as much as it was, but I still sort of hear it and see it in promos and things they do on TV. I still get the impression the inmates are running the asylum. Um, I think I think Jeff has brought more professionalism over there. One of the big stories out of the Toronto show over the weekend that Brian Danielson was hurt again?
Broke his arm.
Okay.
during the match.
You know,
That's a-
I'm sorry, but
that's the style they work, folks. We got to work into wrapping this show off. I want to remind everybody, Dark Side of the Ring tonight, the JYD. There's so many comments that I hadn't got to. Real quick, Michael, just answer the question from Nicholas. Who's winning the World Series? His pick is the Braves. You'll probably say Cincinnati.
I hope Cincinnati, but I think we're way too young, way too early to sell. And the one thing that are to tell, but I will say this, the two things Major League Baseball did this year that I think were on the money. I love the pitch count, and it's even better when you're at the stadium. Not the pitch count, but the pitch clock. The pitch clock is awesome. And I love the fact that every team, American League, National League, plays every other team. I absolutely think that's fabulous. Every team plays every other team. I think that's fabulous. But as far as who's in the World Series, ask me that at the beginning of August, and I'll give you a bona fide answer. But,
real quick, a question from our audience. Pat, what did you think about ECW's Joey Style? Real brief answer.
I mean, I loved watching him.
Michael, real brief.
Yeah, I loved his style. Joey Styles, I loved his style. And he fit what that show was. He fit what that wrestling was about. And I think that's the biggest compliment you can pay to the guy.
Pat, final comments.
Yeah, this has been an interesting show that's been in a lot of directions. It's been emotional, you know. Starting with Ron Mallett, and then I get emotional watching somebody like Jackie Fargo. I really do. But it just reminds me how much this means to me, how much you guys mean to me, how much everybody that shares their Tuesday night means to me, and thank you all.
Final words, Michael St. John, before I do the plugs.
I totally agree with Pat. That this has been an emotional show. I think not only from what we watched, but what we said. I think we had a lot of emotion in this show. And but just quickly, last week we didn't. I don't know if you guys got into it before I joined you, but the meeting at Matt Bourne Doink the Clown episode last week on Dark Side, I think was very troubling. To me, it was more troubling than some of the others they've shown. More so even than the Eddie Graham story. Boy, I'll tell you that. And I worked with Maniac Matt Bourne in Dallas at the USWA. He was with us in the beginning, and Jerry fired him because of some of his bad habits and transgressions. And, and then tonight should be interesting. I want to leave you with one thought tonight as you go outside and look into the sky. The moonlight feels right.
There you go.
Moonlight feels right. Couldn't have said it better. Thank you, guys. Love you guys.
Love you,
right.
Randy.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate
hey, everybody
y'all.
listening and watching. Thank y'all. Love y'all. Thank you so much.
Folks,
night,
I'm really
everybody.
excited about this show today. Thanks to Michael. Thanks to Pat. Thanks to Adam over there punching the buttons. And we'll do the plug-a-roonies right now. By plugging, I will be on the front row with Budrow tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, co-hosting with Randy Myers at 7 o'clock. You can listen to the show at 953theticket.com, or you can call in at 870-930-3776. Attention audience. Tomorrow, I have plans because Adam will be there with me and be able to be the camera operator. I do have plans, and I just got Adam. I got the Wi-Fi code, so we're good shape there. I plan not the entire 3 hours. You'll have to listen at 953theticket.com for that. But The Randy Hales Show on all my outlets, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, everything, will go on the air for my 8 o'clock interview, who will be Coach Kanan Grosbeck, the head volleyball coach for Camp Junior High School, the junior high school I went to back in 1974 and 1975. And this young lady, I've known her since about 2 hours into her life. It's my lovely great niece, the former Kanan Richardson, now Kanan Grosbeck, and we will have that interview tomorrow. And then he knows a dude from Bad Street, USA. I hired him for the USWA Wrestling in 1998. Double B, Brandon Baxter, the face and the voice of EAB, Brandon Baxter. So my plans, even though we'll go in the area 7, and we will talk about the Ryan Mallett, just sadness and tragedy. At 8 o'clock, we will then have Kanan, Coach Kanan. I better not just call her Kanan tomorrow, but we have Coach Grosbeck on, and then at 9 o'clock for the Power Hour, it'll be Double B, Brandon Baxter. And I'm looking forward to that show. And we should go on the air at 8, and then about 8:25, we will go off the air, come back on at 9 o'clock, as we will be streaming on all my outlets. So make sure you watch the streaming for sure. Friday night, it's my newest show. It's the Randy Hales Show. I will post the link. This is a interactive show. Ask RH anything. It is an interactive show that I'm modeling after talk radio. Excited about this. We have guests from all over the world, even though Pat's never come in one time. We're going with short interviews throughout the thing. Had visitors, Mark from Kentucky the other day, from Nebraska, from Australia, all over. Rod Robinson, Andrew Calvin Jr. never been on, but I forgot to say hello to him earlier. Team Hales is doing a great job Friday night. That show's on at 6 Central. Then Monday night, I just remember Monday is July the 3rd. Tuesday is July the 4th. It has been decided we will not have shows next Monday or Tuesday. No shows next Monday or Tuesday. Adam's pointing that camera over there and looking right at the desk, and you see my setup right now from a different camera shot. This has been fun, and for Adam Dunn, Pat Trammell, Michael St. John, and Team Hales. Check out the radio in the morning. Randy Hales here. Good night, everybody.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales and special guests.